Welcome! Today we're diving into a truly fascinating piece of source material that is going to challenge absolutely everything you think you know about eating. We're exploring this ancient, rigorous concept called a swad, which essentially argues that mastering our palate is literally the ultimate key to mastering ourselves. I mean, if you've ever felt like your cravings just completely control you, or you've wondered about the deep, underlying connection between your diet and ultimate self-mastery, well, this exploration is right up your alley. We're going to break down some intense, thought-provoking ideas today that will for sure make you look at your next meal very differently. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. 1. We'll look at aswad's meaning and purpose. 2. The negative effects of taste. 3. Treating the vow as a continuous effort. And 4. The practical observance of aswad. So, Section 1, Ashwad, meaning and purpose. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is this rigorous-sounding vow, and why on earth would anyone actually want to put themselves through it? Well, aswad translates strictly to the vow of tastelessness. Right, it sounds intense. It means eating purely to sustain the physical body, completely stripping away any pursuit of sensory pleasure. Now, the author argues this is intimately connected to a broader concept you might know called brahmacharya, which is complete self-control or the total mastery of physical desires. The text actually notes that even the greatest sages have struggled to conquer their sense of taste. It's tough, but the logic here is super clear. If you can master the tongue, conquering all those other physical desires becomes incredibly easy. Taste is basically the first domino. And this brilliantly illustrates the core mindset shift required for aswad. The author draws this super direct, relatable comparison between food and medicine. Think about it. When you take medicine, do you honestly care if it's delicious? No, of course not. You take it in the exact quantity required to heal or sustain your body, totally regardless of the flavor. Well, the source insists that our food, yes, even everyday things like milk and fruit, should be treated with that exact same clinical detachment. Just like a little medicine might not work and too much could actually harm you, the exact same principle applies to the food on our plates. So how strict are we talking here? Well, the rules of the vow are all about intent. Intent is everything. Merely tasting something just for the sheer pleasure of it, that breaks the vow. Adding salt or spices just to enhance the flavor? Yep, that's a violation. However, and this is a really vital distinction, adding salt because your body nutritionally requires it, that is perfectly fine. But the author issues a pretty stern warning here. Deceiving yourself into thinking your body needs something just to satisfy a mental craving, that's labeled as pure hypocrisy. You really can't trick the vow. Moving on to Section 2, the negative effects of taste. Let's examine the heavy toll that our daily obsession with tasty food actually takes on our lives. The source includes some wonderfully earthy, traditional sayings to really drive this point home. Quotes like, "The belly makes you do whatever it wants," and "The belly is wicked." Honestly, it's almost universally human to be a slave to our stomachs, isn't it? The text paints this picture of humanity being completely subservient to its digestive system, just constantly dancing to the tune of its cravings. But how exactly does this happen? Well, the text maps out this chronological downfall, and it actually starts right in childhood. Step 1. Parents, out of what the text calls false affection, feed their kids highly flavored, tasty foods. Step 2. The child's tongue essentially becomes addicted. The text literally says the tongue becomes like a dog. And because they eat for taste rather than nutrition, their bodies weaken. Then, Step 3, they grow into adults who are diseased slaves to their senses. The text even quotes an experienced doctor saying he has never seen a single truly healthy human being. The argument is, the second we prioritize taste, our bodies begin to fail us. We become completely reliant on doctors, and we lose our independence. Which brings us to Section 3, vow, a continuous effort. Now, if that reality check felt a bit harsh, confronting these strict dietary rules can definitely feel overwhelming, maybe even totally impossible. So the crucial point is this. No one should panic at this line of thought. The author completely recognizes the sheer terror this concept might strike into the heart of a foodie. You aren't expected to just instantly transform into some perfect being who never enjoys a meal again. The text explicitly tells us not to abandon the idea just because it seems terrifyingly difficult. Instead, taking a vow is framed through this concept of purusharth. Basically, this means making a continuous, sincere, and resolute effort with your mind, words, and actions. It's about honestly striving for an ideal until the very day you die. A vow doesn't mean you perfectly execute all the rules from day one. It just means you promise to honestly try. Now, the text strongly warns against lowering your ideals or, watering down the definition just to make it easier on yourself. That, the author says, is a betrayal of the truth. You've got to keep that highest ideal in sight, even if reaching it demands backbreaking effort. Let's look at how this builds by contrasting the divine with the seeker. According to the source, only God, who is free and unbound, is actually capable of perfectly observing all vows, instantly at all times. But us, we are mumukshu, seekers of truth. We are inherently imperfect, so our job is to slowly, carefully, and persistently strive toward that ideal. If we keep at it, the text promises that one day we'll become worthy of divine grace, and all those physical desires will finally burn away. The message here is basically be patient, but be relentless. Finally, Section 4, Practical Observance of Aswad. We've talked a lot about the high-level philosophy, but how do we actually ground this into actionable daily habits? The text gives us some incredibly clear, practical steps to start mastering our palate. First off, you don't need to stress about food 24/7. You just need to cultivate constant awareness. Notice when and where your mind is reaching for flavor. Second, the author highly recommends communal kitchens. Why? Because if someone else is cooking purely for the community's sustenance, you don't have to agonize every single day over what to cook or eat. It just totally removes the temptation of choice. Third, whatever is placed in front of you, eat it without even mentally complaining about it. And finally, view the food as divine grace. Eat only the exact amount your body needs to function and then just walk away from the table. Now, as a really fascinating side note, the author does point toward an ultimate physical ideal, and that's sun-cooked food. The text suggests that the absolutely highest state of dietary purity involves food that requires little to no fire to cook, meaning food cooked only by the great fire of the sun, so essentially a purely fruit-based diet. But the author quickly anchors us back to reality, noting that we don't need to dive quite that deep just yet. The primary goal for us right now is just to understand Aswad, recognize our own personal hurdles, and simply begin the effort to control a relationship with taste. Which brings us to a final, pretty provocative question I want to leave you with today. Are we eating to feed our bodies, or are we simply eating to entertain our tongues? The vow of Aswad isn't just some ancient diet plan. It's a really profound lens on human psychology and self-control. The next time you sit down for a meal or, reach for that extra dash of salt, just ask yourself, who is really in charge? Your conscious mind or your taste buds? Thanks for exploring this fascinating text with me today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I challenge you to really observe your own relationship with flavor today.